So, the first thing you're going to have to master in order to best make use of this system would be the character sheets. This is the place where most of the information about your player character or your non-player character is stored, respectively here in the Actors tab. It's all quite easy to create an actor. You click actor here, you give it a name, and then boom, a character sheet appears. Now, I already have 4 pre-generated characters to showcase a couple of things with. First of all, our main character is over here. His name is Erevan, he's a Dunmer. When you click Erevan, or rather double click him, his character sheet opens just like this. So over here, you're going to be seeing something that should be very familiar to you. It should be your character sheet. Over here are the attributes like your health, your magicka, your stamina, and then your base characteristics, which determine most of your target numbers for your roles, like your strength, endurance, agility, and such. You can see that some of these have a button attached to them. So if Erevan were to try and give me an endurance test, I would click this and the system would roll it for me automatically. So make a 1d100 roll behind the scenes for me. That's great. That's very convenient. Thank you, robot. So over here, you can see things like favorite attributes. You click this, you toggle mark it, it reminds you of the fact that you have a favorite attribute, so you get XP discounts and all that good stuff. Then there's things like the race. So you can see here that Erevan is a Dunmer, he has the Atronach birth sign, and there's also a couple of fields for flavor mechanics as well. Then there are some fields for lucky numbers. Here you input your lucky numbers, and when the system makes a roll for you, if it rolls one of your lucky numbers or unlucky numbers respectively, guess what? You went through a critical success or a critical failure. So it's going to specify that's what happened. Then there's a field for XP points as well. The way that I like to do this is to do it in a manner of your leftover experience slash your total experience. So Erevan has a total character experience of 2,000, right? That's shown right here. And he's used 1,800 of his points, and he has 200 experience left. So basically his leftover experience slash his total character experience. This is for things like tracking how far you can advance in a certain skill if your game master is making use of the rule that limits your advancement in skills unless you go over above a total XP threshold. Then there's the skills tab. You know how this works. Every character has their skills. You can change the rank here. Basically, this is your auto-generated target number, and if you change the rank here, let's say you're trained in the skill or you're an apprentice in the skill, you can see your target number rises respectively. You can also change the characteristic associated with that skill. So if Erevan is going to be rolling acrobatics with his agility, then we switch it over to his agility, and you can see that it increased with 5 points. If Erevan wants to do a front flip in the middle of a combat, I ask Erevan to roll me athletics, and he goes to his character sheet, and then he clicks acrobatics, and boom, there we go, we have an acrobatics roll. That's how this works. If you would scroll down here, you would see that there's also a couple of interesting professions as well. This is for more miscellaneous hobby stuff that doesn't really pertain to adventuring. You can see here Erevan is a novice basket weaver. This is his hobby. A couple of days ago, he made a basket. He loved the basket. He has it in his backpack, and he carries things to a picnic wherever he goes. Then, if you scroll down, there's the magic skills. These are skills as well, but they're put in a separate section so as to differentiate what they do from the more normal, generic adventuring skills. You roll for these the same as the others. You choose your characteristic, you choose your rank, and you click roll, and it does it for you, so it's very convenient. Then there's the combat tab. You might have noticed that all of this sheet is automatically generated. So for example, if you have an endurance of 40, the system knows what the formula for hit points is, and it automatically detects the fact that it should be 20. Same goes with your wound threshold. The formula for the wound threshold, the speed rating, the initiative rating, they're all automatically calculated and put in here, so that you have a quick reference for them, and so that you can also make use of them in the game and the system as well. Then over here is the combat style. This represents your combat style. Erevan is a decent fighter. Let's say that he's trained in using unarmed. Let's say he specializes in a spear, and he can also use a short sword, a short bow, and he wears medium armor. So if Erevan were to try and get into a fight with someone, if he would try and attempt to attack with his fists or with his spear, he would roll for his spear dancer combat style. Over here are the action points and things like size and armor class. Now, your action points are linked to your tokens. If we were to drag Erevan's token over here, he takes a couple of steps later down the flight of stairs, we will see that Erevan, if we right-click his token, has a couple of values here. Traditionally, the upper value is supposed to be his action points, and the lower value is supposed to be his health. I believe I've unfortunately mixed it up. Yes, I've personally mixed it up, but it shouldn't be happening to you. So basically, when you change what's on your token there, a change is also going to be made on the sheet. So if you're in mid-combat, you right-click his token, you change his action points from 3 to 2, and bam, it says so in your character sheet as well. In mine, it says health, it should be saying action points. Like I mentioned, it should be working fine for you. Then there's things like armor locations, prepared weapons, and prepared spells. This is a bit more complicated since it pertains to compendiums as well, which we'll be getting to in a second. Here is a field for talents. This is an editable tiny MCE field. You basically copy paste the talents that you have here, and bam wham, you have quick reference of your talents. Then there's a tab for spells, which again is linked to the compendium. A tab for journals, which you can write pretty much anything here. Thoughts on the current quest, the situation at hand, your actual character journal, whatever you want, you can type in here. And then the equipment, which is basically what Erevan has on him. You can see that his carry rating and his current encumbrance is automatically calculated, and you can see that he also already has some items in his inventory. Now, Erevan, after recollecting all the skills that he's learned over his previous adventures, will now take a quick look through his backpack and equip himself for the following adventures, since he knows that the town of Balmora is quite unpleasant at night. So as the sun starts falling, Erevan is going to take a quick inventory and start putting on the armor that he has with him, but he has not equipped yet. So he walks all over here to the base of the stairs, and he's going to try and see what weapons he can equip. So first of all, Erevan has his spear. This is now time to explain how combat works in regards to the character sheet usage at least, and how to make use of armors and weapon. So, when you go here to the items compendium, you're going to see a huge 800-something list of all types of items that can be found within the core rulebook. We'll say that Erevan is a master of the spear, and he fights with a Dwemer spear he had with him for quite some time now. So it's quite simply a drag and drop operation. We drag and drop the Dwemer spear into his inventory, and bam, it appears there. He now has a Dwemer spear in his inventory. We do the same for armor. So let's say that he wears the traditional armor of the Dunmeri people. He's going to have a couple of partial bone mold pieces on him. More specifically, the boots and the armor. Now, we've dragged these items to our inventory, but if you go to combat, they don't show up here. The reason for that is because you have to equip them first. So if you would like to equip the weapon, you need to click the edit field here next to the Dwemer spear. Then there is a button here that says equip weapon. So this is quite self-explanatory. If you open the drop-down menu, it shows you 3 weapon slots. Basically, these are what weapon slots your weapons are assigned to. So if you have a Dwemer spear, but Erevan is also fighting with a short sword, then we can find a sword here. We can drag it to his inventory. Let's pick a kitten broadsword. And we can make it so that Dwemer spear is his primary weapon, so this is what Erevan primarily uses. And by his belt, by his side, tucked into his waist, is the kitten broadsword that he also has, which we're also going to be making the secondary weapon. So now that we've equipped these weapons, if we go to combat, we're going to be noticing that there they are. You can click to roll for them. So let's say Erevan hits with his spear. He's done a tremendous blow. I ask him to roll damage. He does click, and he rolls for damage. Very quick, very easy, superb. Same with the kitten broadsword as well. Now, what's left is the armor. The armor is done as well. You edit it this manner. You can see all types of information about what type of armor it is, all sorts of statistics associated with it, as well as a nice little flavorful description. You can equip your armor by clicking the drop-down menu here and assigning which part of your body you're covering. So this is a chest plate, so we're going to be associating it with our body area. So we're going to be putting it as a chest plate. And if we look over here to combat, you can see that it says that on his body he has 2 armor class. That should be mostly it for the character sheet, but there's something still very special: the spells and the macros. So the spells are mostly done in the same manner. You go to the compendium and then you start dragging your things here. Let's say that Erevan is an adept user of destruction, so if we would look for destruction spells, we'd find all of them. Let's drag and drop one of the spells here. We'll call it Fire Rune. So Erevan knows Fire Rune, and if you would edit it, you would see all the information about it here, including the spell level, the mana point cost, or whether or not it's prepared, just like the weapons we've presented before. So if he knows the spell, he can prepare it on the second slot, and if we either use a macro or go to the combat section and press the second spell, it's automatically going to roll for that spell. The way that I primarily like to do spell levels, since the system doesn't quite allow you to do things like saying spell level 1 to 2. See, if it do that, it just kills it, it just deletes it itself. I like to do parenthesis. I like to do it like this. If you press enter, then it's going to say Destruction Fire Rune 1 to 2, so it's going to be obvious which spell levels Erevan knows. So now that we've prepared a couple of spells and we've put them to use, let's see how we can cast them. We can click roll, and there you go. You can see in your list of prepared spells the spells that we've addressed. Now, there's one more thing that's left to mention. That is the macros. Now, you might not be wanting to open up your character sheet and manually click to roll for some type of item or another during the midst of thrilling combat, exhilarating combat. So if you want to do things a bit more quicker, or if you need to have stronger World of Warcraft vibes, then you can just quickly take notice of the quick bar here to the lower left. Here you can drag macros that the creator of the sheet, Alex Hernandez, has made, besides all these items. By the way, props to David Rhodes and Alex Hernandez for creating the tokens and the system respectively. Without their work, I really would have been working a lot harder for my game, so they've made it a lot easier. You've done a great job, the both of you. Now, if you would go here to your macros list, you notice there's a lot of macros associated with skills you can roll. I've already dragged Combat Style 1 and Deceive over here, so if I was to click Erevan's token, and if I was to click on my keyboard the number 1, or just manually press 1 over here, it would roll for his combat style. If I press 2, Erevan's going to try and make a little lie. So this also works in the manner of changing your weapons around. Erevan's primary weapon is a spear, so we're going to be dragging it here. We press 3 and it activates his spear. Erevan has a sidearm as well, and as far as I recall, that's a sword. So if we drag and drop secondary weapon sword and we press 4, it's automatically going to assume that he draws his broadsword and he starts using that instead. So you can easily switch between your weapons by doing that. Another worthy thing to mention about the macros is that NPC macros are also here. Character sheets have different basically foundations depending on whether or not they're a PC sheet or a character sheet. If you have an NPC sheet like the one for Bjornolf over here, you'll notice it's a bit different in regards to the fact that it's more condensed. It has things like attract, general combat, magic, evade, observe score already calculated, and a couple of unconventional skills instead of having a respective big skill list, because NPCs don't really need to have all that many skills. You don't pay that much attention to them, so you need to gloss over what's unnecessary and only pay attention to what you need to. That's primarily how NPC sheets differ. They are the more condensed form of player character sheets. Now, if Bjornolf, though, were to try and attack with the combat style macro, that wouldn't work, though, because he's an NPC. He doesn't make use of the same formula. What you need to do instead is drag the NPC macros here onto your toolbar, NPC combat, press the number after you find Bjornolf here on the map, and there you have it. It rolls the NPC's combat style. So for NPCs, you're most likely going to have to use the NPC macros. They're the way through which you're going to be activating your abilities.